navigate to Autobahn Country Club. That's right, I'm headed to the racetrack with my cheap Model 3 Tesla. I just hit 150,000 miles in the car, and I thought this would be a fun treat for the car to celebrate. I'll be headed to Autobahn and be there in about an hour. My buddy's hooking me up with a track day for guests. He's a member there. And I'm going to see how the car does bone stock with all season tires on the track without any modifications. I have not changed anything in terms of brake pads or tires or anything like that. I did change the fluid recently, just a couple weeks back, a couple months back maybe, so that should help. But other than that, it's bone stock. I'm not going to go really fast. Obviously, it's been a while since I've driven on track in anger, but I am going to see what the car feels like, how it handles, how the traction control handles things, and basically just try to have some fun. This car will be fast in a straight line, but probably get eaten up in the turns by something like a Miata, despite the low center of gravity. So just comparisons like that, I'm just curious to see what it's like, and also just have some fun with some buddies. So stay tuned, we'll be there in about an hour.
And here we are. An hour later, we've arrived at the Autobahn Country Club. On the south course, there was a group with the SCCA doing some testing. We had a bunch of GT1 cars, which look like NASCAR cars a little bit, but they're more like Trans Am racing cars. We had some Formula Mazda open wheel Formula cars. We had some Formula Ford cars. A couple of like maybe F1000 or F2000 cars. They look like Indy Lights cars to me. They look wicked fast and wicked fun. And then we had a couple of street modified cars come later. They look basically like a car you'd see in an autocross, license plates, some modifications, but nothing too crazy.
That thing's sweet.
My friends and I were on the north course. A lot of them, most of them had Spec Miatas. So lots of Spec Miatas in our group. You'll see in the footage later on track. It's pretty much all Spec Miatas. There was a couple other cars that showed up. We had an Altima car. We had a couple of like small Formula cars. Even, this is crazy, a Formula One Ferrari. Yes, I would say 98, 99 or so era, maybe 2002, something like that. Maybe Schumacher era or just post Schumacher era F1 car. It was crazy. We heard it at lunch. I dove out to see it. It was too late. It already stopped running. I did see it later in someone's private garage. Didn't want to take pictures of it in someone's garage, but it was totally awesome. I swear it was there. I'll see if I can find footage here on YouTube to show you guys, but it was pretty sweet to see that out today. Besides that, it was pretty much all Spec Miatas. My group was a big factor in that. And you'll see in the track footage later, pretty much every car on track with me was a Spec Miata, which is fun. It's a nice match for the Tesla. They're faster, but it was still fun to dice with them a little bit.
All right, I just came off track for the first time, as you saw. I had some decent laps in there. It was my first session out, so nothing too crazy. The car lasted, I would say, around 3 laps before I got a hot braking temperature warning. It's cool that Tesla has a hot brake temperature warning at all. I didn't know that they had that. I did kind of feel it just before the warning came on. The pedal got a little soft, so I gave it more pressure, and then the car sensed this as a emergency stopping situation, and it gave me more pressure automatically, which is good. And then right at that point, I got a warning here. Ignore the tire pressure warning, that's unrelated. I got a red colored brake warning light for temperatures. So after that, I really cooled things down. I went a little easier and just used the regen to get some braking power and just kind of coasted for a lap. Then my buddy Justin came along behind me in his Spec Miata, so I went a little faster now that the brakes had cooled off. Of course, he still passed me with ease, but it was fun seeing him in my mirrors for a bit. And then I think I had maybe one half lap at best where I could see him, and then we got checkered flag. So it was fun. Great first session. The car handles awesome. The all seasons are, of course, pretty low grip and squeal all the time, but it's still fun. I would say the stability control is not overly intrusive. You know, of course, you always want a little bit more freedom, but it wasn't something I would complain about. I think Tesla struck a good balance between safety and ability to have fun. So if you're curious, I only did about a half session this time because I had to do some safety stuff I didn't know about beforehand. So for around 10 minutes, I went from 81% down to 70% charge. And that was half a session. So doing the math, I've got 2 or 3 more sessions today. I think 2 more sessions today. So that'll put me down. If I do full sessions, that would be what, like 40%. So I'd end up around 30% at the end of the day. There is a charger here at Autobahn, if you're curious. The good news is this charger does work. It looks like an old Nissan branded Leaf charger, I'm guessing. So pretty old era. But I've got my J1772 to Tesla adapter plugged in here, and it's working great. You can see here, starting to charge, so I should be a-okay all day, even if I couldn't charge anymore. But now I'll be even more charged up. And while I'm talking about charging, how about something that gets terrible gas mileage? Check out that sweet Bentley. Man, I love those. It's got antique plates, and man, it's just perfect, just the way it sits. So kudos to whoever's car that is. I'll keep you updated as the day goes on. I also noted on PlugShare that there's a 240 volt outlet, which I found over here. See the Mach-E charging? They are both padlocked. Well, one's padlocked, one's in use. I'm sure if I really needed it, someone could open it up for me. All right, we've been charging for probably, let's see, a little over 2 hours. We're up to 88% on this free Nissan Leaf charging here at Autobahn Country Club. All right, pulling up for another session now. Starting this session at 91%. You can see it's getting a little rainy, so this car is not super affected by rain because I've just got regular all seasons, but maybe I'll go a little slower and maybe use a little bit less braking due to the lower grip. But I still got to go easy on the brakes this go round. And I'll also monitor how many laps I do and the percentage of state of charge afterwards. Here we go. All right, just finished up my final session. I went from 91% down to 4%. But before you freak out about doing a track day with a Model 3, you should know that I did an hour-long session. The weather's a little crummy, I guess, and I don't know, I guess some of the folks aren't interested in getting all the track time they can. So I was able to stay on track for an hour. I reset my odometer partway through, my trip odometer partway through. I would estimate I did another 15 miles on top of that, so call it 58 miles, maybe 60 miles or so, from 91% down to 4%. I did reset, the trip odometer to also see the watt hours per mile. Don't judge the watt hours per mile based on my trip for 2 reasons. One, I slowed down a lot at the end because my brakes were running out. And with these, stock pads on stock brakes, I ran out of braking power. They got too hot. I got that warning message that I showed you earlier. So I slowed down a lot for that. Also, my battery was getting low, and I wanted to stay on track longer, even if it meant lower top speeds. So for those 2 reasons, I slowed down a lot, which saved some of the energy usage there. I'll tell you, the peak I saw with my own eyes was 968 watt hours per mile. And I suspect that before I reset it, I was doing worse than that, probably 1,000 watt hours per mile when I was chasing my buddy in the black Miata with the big wing. So if you're doing a track day with your Model 3 and you are, using better brake pads than me, which pretty much any brake pad would be better than these stockers, and also especially if you're on slick tires where you can maintain speed more and stay on the throttle more, I would factor on at least 1,000 watt hours per mile, probably more than that, maybe even 1,100 with good brakes and good tires. Don't let that 771 fool you. I was very much feathering the throttle towards the end and conserving my battery and conserving my brakes. So down to 4%. That's the last session of the day, so I gotta make sure this thing juices up so I can get home, honestly, while I pack up the car and hang out with my buddies a little longer. And I'll let you know how things go after some more reflection. But I'll tell you, my impressions of this car on track, very, very positive. Tesla did a fantastic job with making this car say that it's fun. It's got a low center of gravity, handles great. I remember when this car came out, people were comparing it to the E90 BMW in terms of proportions, dimensions, suspension setup, suspension arrangement and geometry. And I can't dispute that. It handles like a BMW with the lower center of gravity. Yeah, it's a little heavier maybe, but it's really fun to drive. Another shout out to one or more engineers at Tesla. Fantastic job in setting up the stability control. It could have been way more restrictive than it was. It was actually pretty good. Not only was it somewhat de-restrictive and letting you kind of have some fun, slide a little bit, but then intervene. You know, it was all right in that regard. More importantly, I would say it's surprisingly good at correcting understeer and oversteer. If I went into a turn too hot and I was starting to, you know, wash out towards the outside of the turn, it would do a really good job in correcting that and straightening things up a little bit. So same for oversteer, of course. I mean, any automaker is going to prevent oversteer from occurring. That's dangerous. But understeer is not as dangerous usually, and yet the car would correct it. I don't know how. It doesn't use torque vectoring, I don't think, so it must just use braking on the inside wheel. And I gotta say, you didn't even notice it was happening, except for the direction of the car would change a little bit. You didn't hear that ABS pump or anything like that. It's very smooth, very seamless, and very effective. So shout out to Tesla for a fantastic track experience, even with all the stability control stuff on stock pads and stock tires. I'll think of some more stuff and probably talk about it later. All right, wrap things up at the track. Checked out my buddy's sweet garage club where he can overlook the track and store his car. And now I'm headed home past the Chicagoland Speedway, and just to the right of that, Chicagoland Route 66 Dragway. On the way back, the system is routing me to a charger so I can make it home. But I am late for a get-together, and I'm hoping I can hypermile back, maybe behind an 18-wheeler or something, and make it back without stopping. So right now I'm about 5 miles short of where I need to be in order to make it home. As you can see here, I got 40 miles of range and I got 43 miles to go, so only 3 miles now. But I'm going to try to sneak in behind an 18-wheeler and try to get some draft so I can make it without charging. I'll probably end up around 0% at home, but I'm going to give it a shot and see if I can do it without stopping. We'll see. Finally, it was still recalculating. I've got 40 miles of range still, but 46 miles to go, looking like a -2 battery arrival. So I got some percentage to make up, not just 2%, but I need to make up a little bit of a buffer too in case something unexpected happens. So wish me luck. Well, I've gone about a third of the way home and I've already decided to give up on my hypermiling plan. I was constantly 4 miles short of where I needed to be. I just gave up, even though I was, right behind 18-wheelers and trying to eke out a little bit more mileage. It was just always 3 or 4 miles away, 4 or 5 miles sometimes. So I'm giving up. Just gonna go full bore, get to the supercharge for like 2 minutes probably will be enough, and then hop back on the highway. As it is, I'm not gonna get to the supercharger until 3%. It's gotta be a record for me. Last paid charging station, $1.55. That is the cheapest and fastest charging stop I've ever had. But I just needed literally 2 or 3 minutes worth to keep going. I think it was literally 2 minutes, if that. So I'll be home with plenty of juice left, 31 miles of range and 23 miles to go. 3%. I'll call that perfect if I get home at 3%. Thanks for watching, and hope y'all enjoyed the track day video and the Model 3. More videos to come soon. This Bolingbrook, Illinois charging station is interesting. There's a whole row of 250 kilowatt charging stations, but down there is only 150 kilowatt. And I noticed some people are charging at the 150 even though there's some 250 ones open. I guess they don't really notice. It's unusual for me, at least, as a new Tesla owner, to see that, but if it's new to them, maybe they should switch as well if they knew, or maybe they just don't care because they're not in a hurry. But all right, the car survived the track day just fine. I am feeling a slight click or clunk from the front brakes as I come away from a stoplight. So the automatic brakes engage when you stop, and then when they release, I hear a little click or a clunk. Looks like the pads are fine. Plenty of meat left on the pads. Lots of brake dust though. You can tell this is a track day pile of brake dust. So I'll give it a good wash this weekend and see if I need to bleed the brakes. The pedal feels a little soft to me compared to what it was before I got to the track. So I wonder if the pedal is a little soft because of the fluid. Maybe there's some bubbles in there or something like that. But anyway, I've got 19 miles of range and I'm at 21 miles to go. So I'm gonna give it like one more minute. It says 3, but I think one more minute will be enough. And I'm just gonna leave with that. I think that's gonna be plenty. Oh, look at that, exactly 151,000 miles. That's crazy. All right, 28 miles there, 21 to go. I'm calling it. Time to head home. All right, I'm gonna make it home with 2% after all. Oh, 1% now. I tell you, driving at 80 miles an hour, 20 miles an hour of the speed limit, and without the aero hubcaps, I think makes a difference. I was probably doing, 80 and a 60 most of the way home, and it definitely takes a toll on the range. So still, 2% is not bad. I'll take it. That's as close as I needed to be to get home without wasting time with the supercharger. And look at that. 6 o'clock on the dot. I'm gonna make it. So thanks for watching. Hope you like the track day coverage. If you have any questions, comment below, and stay tuned on the Mind of Matter YouTube channel for more content for cars, EVs specifically, especially, and boats and whatever else I have going on. Thanks. Bye bye.